The house did not look abandoned when I first saw it. That was the unsettling part. Its windows were clean, the porch light glowed faintly despite the absence of power lines, and the front door stood slightly open, as if it had been expecting me. I remember thinking how quiet everything was, no birds, no wind, not even the distant hum of traffic, just a thick, suffocating stillness that pressed against my ears. When I stepped inside, the air smelled warm and familiar, like a place I had lived in once but couldn't quite remember. The door closed behind me without a sound. I didn't turn around. Somewhere deep in the house, floorboards creaked slowly, deliberately, as though something heavy was shifting its weight. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, the walls lined with faded frames holding photographs turned face down, all of them. I felt an odd sense of relief wash over me, followed immediately by fear, because relief made no sense here. I tried to tell myself this was just an old house settling, that my imagination was running ahead of me, but the silence felt intentional, like a held breath. That was when I noticed the clock on the wall. Its hands were moving backward, 1 second at a time. With each tick, a soft whisper brushed past my ear, calling my name in a voice that sounded uncomfortably like my own. My chest tightened as a sudden certainty took hold in my mind. This place did not want me to leave, and worse, it already knew that I wouldn't. At first, the changes in the house are so minor that they seem like tricks of memory rather than something real. A door that once opened into the living room now leads to a narrow storage space, and a window that faced the front yard shows only a blank wall when looked at again. The protagonist tries to rationalize it, blaming exhaustion or stress, convincing himself that old houses often feel confusing in low light. He marks certain spots with small, careful sign scratches near the doorframe, a chair placed deliberately in the center of the hallway, just to be sure. Each morning, those signs are gone, wiped away without disturbance, as if the house has politely corrected him. As night falls, the rearrangements become more deliberate. Hallways lengthen, corners appear where there were none, and staircases end at ceilings instead of upper floors. The protagonist begins to notice that the house changes only when he is not looking, as though it understands the limits of human perception and operates just beyond them. The realization unsettles him more than any obvious movement would have, because it suggests intention rather than decay. He starts waking up at odd hours, compelled by a sense that something has shifted again, only to find the layout unfamiliar despite having walked it dozens of times the day before. With each alteration, his memory of the original structure grows weaker. He struggles to recall where the front door used to be, or how many rooms the house had when he first entered. The house seems to be stealing not just space, but certainty, blurring the line between what he remembers and what exists. He sketches rough maps in a notebook, but when he looks back at them, the drawings feel wrong, like they were made by someone else trying to describe a place they had never seen. The fear deepens when he realizes that his own handwriting begins to change, becoming slower and less confident, as if even his identity is being eroded along with the layout. The most disturbing moment comes when he finally believes he has found a way out. A familiar doorway appears at the end of a long corridor, light spilling through its edges, carrying the faint scent of the outside world. His heart races as he moves toward it, certain this is the exit he has been searching for. But when he reaches the door and pulls it open, it leads back into the house itself, opening onto a room he recognizes as his own bedroom. In that moment, he understands that the house is not merely rearranging walls and passages. It is folding in on itself, closing every possible path outward, slowly teaching him that escape is not something that can be remembered or rediscovered. The voices begin softly, so faint that they are easy to mistake for the house settling or air moving through unseen cracks. At first, they are nothing more than fragments, half-formed words that dissolve the moment he tries to focus on them. He tells himself that isolation is playing tricks on his mind, that silence can invent sounds when the brain is desperate for company. But the whispers grow clearer with each passing night, threading themselves into the quiet with unsettling precision. They never call out loudly, never demand attention, yet they always seem to know exactly when he is most vulnerable. What unsettles him most is not the sound of the voices, but what they say. They speak his name the way his mother used to, with a tired softness that carries memory rather than sound. They mention things he has never told anyone, small private thoughts and moments of shame he believed were buried too deep to resurface. At times they repeat sentences he once thought silently to himself, echoing them back in the same rhythm, the same pauses, as if they were replaying his own mind. He searches the house for hidden speakers, for any sign that someone else could be playing a cruel trick. But every room he checks is empty and undisturbed. As days blur together, the voices begin to move. One night they drift from behind the walls. Another night they breathe from the ceiling above his bed. And sometimes they trail just behind him as he walks, close enough that he can feel warmth where a body should be. He notices that the house itself seems to respond to them, doors creaking open when a whisper reaches a certain tone, lights flickering when a voice lingers too long in one place. It feels as though the voices are not intruders, but extensions of the house, given sound only to guide him deeper into confusion. Eventually, the whispers shift from observation to suggestion. They remind him of how tired he is, how heavy his body feels, how pointless it would be to keep searching for a way out. They speak with patience, never threatening, never urgent, offering comfort instead of fear. In moments of weakness, he almost believes they are trying to help him, that surrendering to the house might bring relief. The most terrifying realization comes when he catches himself responding to the voices out loud, answering questions he does not remember being asked, and feeling a strange sense of companionship in the exchange, as if the house has learned the exact frequency of his loneliness, and is speaking back to him in a language only he can understand. The discovery of the photographs happens by accident. During one of his increasingly frantic searches for proof that the house is changing, a section of the wall sounds hollow when he knocks on it, and behind the peeling wallpaper he finds a narrow gap, just wide enough to hide something meant to be forgotten. Inside are dozens of old photographs, stacked carefully as if preserved rather than discarded. The paper is yellowed and brittle, the edges curled with age, yet the images themselves are disturbingly clear. At first, he notices only the setting, the same house, the same rooms, captured from angles he recognizes with growing unease. As he studies them more closely, a cold heaviness settles in his chest. The people in the photographs are different in clothing and hairstyle, clearly from different decades, yet their faces share the same structure, the same eyes, the same subtle scar near the jawline. They all look like him. Some are standing stiffly in the living room, others seated at the kitchen table, a few staring directly into the camera with expressions that mirror his own exhaustion and fear. The realization hits slowly, allowing denial to cling for a few moments longer than it should, before the truth presses down with unbearable weight. He flips through the photographs, hands shaking, noticing how each image seems to capture a different stage of deterioration. In the earliest ones, the faces appear alert, almost hopeful, as if the people still believed they were temporary guests. In later photographs, the eyes grow duller, the posture more resigned, the smiles forced or absent altogether. Some images show the same person multiple times, years apart, aging within the walls of the house while the world outside presumably moves on without them. The house, unchanged in every picture, becomes the only constant, silently witnessing their slow surrender. Hidden among the photographs are handwritten notes on the back, short messages scrawled in desperate ink. Most of them are variations of warnings, fragmented thoughts urging whoever finds them to leave before it is too late. What breaks him is recognizing his own handwriting on the most recent photograph, dated years in the future, describing fears he has not yet fully formed but somehow already understands. The house is not just repeating a pattern, it is recycling people, wearing them down until they become another preserved memory tucked into its walls. As the weight of the discovery sinks in, he becomes aware of the house responding again, the walls creaking softly as if shifting in approval. The photographs are not a record meant to help him escape, but evidence of a role he has already been assigned. In that moment, he understands that identity in this place is temporary, that the house does not care about names or histories, only about filling a familiar shape again and again until even the person inside forgets they were ever someone else. The attempt to escape begins with a fragile sense of hope, sparked by a change that feels different from the others. One morning, the air near the front of the house smells sharper, cleaner, carrying a trace of cold that does not belong indoors. He follows it carefully, heart pounding, afraid that paying too much attention might cause it to vanish. At the end of a corridor that did not exist the night before, he sees the front door exactly as he remembers it, sunlight leaking through the thin gap beneath it. For the first time since entering the house, the silence feels broken in a way that promises release rather than threat. He does not hesitate. He pulls the door open and steps outside, bracing himself for the familiar street, the nearby houses, the sound of life continuing without him. Instead, he finds the same landscape, but wrong in ways that are impossible to ignore. The road is cracked and overgrown, the neighboring buildings reduced to hollow shells, their windows dark and empty. The sky hangs low and colorless, and the air feels heavy, as if it has been sitting untouched for years. Panic tightens his chest as he realizes there are no signs of movement, no fresh tracks, no sound beyond his own breathing. As he walks farther from the house, the truth begins to surface through small, devastating details. A rusted car sits abandoned near the curb, its license plate bearing a date decades older than it should be. A faded newspaper caught against a fence crumbles at his touch, its headline referring to events long past. Time, it seems, has not waited for him. While he was trapped inside the house, searching for exits and listening to whispers, the world outside continued on without pause, aging rapidly in his absence. The weight of this realization crushes what little hope remains. Even if he could leave, there is nothing left to return to, no life waiting patiently beyond the walls. The house has not only trapped him in space, but displaced him in time, ensuring that escape carries its own punishment. As despair takes hold, he turns back toward the house, needing its familiar shape, its certainty, even its cruelty. The front door still stands open, welcoming in a way that now feels intentional, almost kind. When he steps back inside, the door closes behind him once again, and the air immediately feels warmer, heavier, unchanged. The house seems satisfied, as if it has proven a point. From that moment on, the idea of escape loses its meaning, because leaving no longer represents freedom. The house has shown him that the outside world is no refuge, that time itself bends around these walls, and that the safest place, the only place that still recognizes him, is the one that will never let him go. The final truth reveals itself not through fear, but through familiarity. After returning from the ruined outside world, the protagonist begins to notice subtle changes in himself that mirror the photographs he found earlier. His reflection lingers a moment too long in mirrors, his expressions sometimes unfamiliar, as if his face is learning new habits without his consent. He catches himself standing in rooms without remembering why he went there, performing small routines that feel rehearsed rather than chosen. The house no longer rearranges itself as often, and the whispers soften, almost approving, as though a transition is nearing completion. One night, while exploring a room he is certain did not exist before, he finds a camera set carefully on a tripod. It faces an empty chair positioned under a single hanging light. The setup feels ceremonial, intimate, and deeply unsettling. Without understanding why, he sits down. The camera clicks on its own, capturing image after image as he remains still, exhaustion pressing his shoulders downward. In that moment, he realizes the photographs were never taken by intruders or previous occupants trying to warn others. They were taken by the house itself, documenting the moment when resistance finally faded. The house does not trap people in the way he once believed. It studies them. It listens, adapts, learns the rhythm of their thoughts and the weight of their regrets. Over time, it reshapes them to fit a role it already knows how to fill. The whispers were never meant to terrify him, only to guide him gently toward acceptance. The shifting rooms were not obstacles, but lessons, erasing the idea of an outside until the inside became enough. Escape was never forbidden, only rendered meaningless. As this understanding settles in, memories that are not his begin to surface. He recalls moments from decades ago, sitting in the same chair, wearing different clothes, answering the same quiet call of the house. Names, faces, entire lives blur together, overlapping until they feel interchangeable. He understands now why the people in the photographs all looked alike. They were not copies, they were continuations. The house does not replace people with something else. It replaces what they used to be with something it can keep. When he finally sees the newest photograph added to the hidden collection, it no longer frightens him. The face staring back is calm, settled, perfectly at home. He recognizes it as himself, not as he was when he arrived, but as he is meant to remain. Somewhere beyond the walls, another traveler will eventually notice the porch light glowing, the door waiting slightly open, and the house will be ready to begin again.